Just, you know, Zoom is Zoom, right? Ugh. And Tammy, I'm just double checking again. You see my PowerPoint again, correct or no?
Yes, I
All
see
right,
it.
thanks. All right, do we have everybody in, Tammy?
I believe so. I'm admitting people individually now. So
Yeah,
you should be
great.
good to go.
All right, let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to June's Learning Forum for the Kansas Perinatal Quality Collaborative. It feels a little odd to be back virtual after getting to see some of you on site just a month ago, which was, I think I got more motivation out of that day than I've gotten professionally in 2 years. So thank you for last month's success, for you all making it a success. But here we are, and this is definitely, as Dr. Smith and I were just sharing, a great forum to be able to share ideas and to communicate when we can't be on site every month. This month, we have some wonderful presentations, and I'll go through the agenda real quick, but we're going to try to roll into those great presenters here as soon as we can. Before we do so, and before I go into the rapid response updates, can you all put your agency name, your name, and title in the chat, please, so we can take attendance today. Go ahead and get that started and get that done for me real fast, and then we'll proceed. Awesome. I'm going to let everybody keep typing, but I see great involvement today. I know summer's kind of funky with vacations and census in some buildings, and certainly all the projects you're doing. So thank you for being here today. We have, I mentioned the great presenters. We are going to get 2 dynamic speakers to speak to us today. One centered around breastfeeding and the other around Kansas birth equity and the training that's ongoing in Kansas. But first, like I mentioned, I want to do a quick updates. I think this is my responsibility to you all and to the state to make sure everybody is caught up as much as I possibly can in terms of the pulse of maternal child health in our state. One of the things that's important to me to say to you is we listened. We knew that our website was not functioning as well as it could as a communication tool and as a resource point of contact. And so sure enough, the website is relaunched. I think you'll be happy with what you see. I would ask for you to play around with it a little bit and certainly provide feedback if there are some other changes we could make. But there is the website there listed for you. KPQC.org is the same website as it was before, but completely revamped. One of the things for our 4th trimester site specifically, we pulled out that content and tried to make it rapid fire, easily available to you. And so under the 4th trimester initiative resources, you'll see that a screenshot there in the middle. To the right, if you drill down, it will provide all the documents from enrollment documents to AIM bundle specifics, resources. Speaking of breastfeeding, all the breastfeeding resources that Carol present today, we will upload into that. There's already some there from the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition as well. Maternal mental health resources from our KCC team are all uploaded. And then all of the information from A1 post-birth to protocol ideas and how to embed maternal warning signs in your facility are listed in the maternal warning signs resources. So if you're ever not sure where to go or information to be had, I would encourage you again to go straight to the source, which is this newly revamped website. Again, feedback appreciated, but we're pretty excited that you all can get to that much faster and much easier now. In other news, there are some concerning statistics coming to us. I finalized this PowerPoint last Friday, and I would say to you that it's still not updated. That was not as updated as it should be, because we all know that a large major federal decision was made on Friday, which completely interacts and connects to our work in terms of maternal and infant mortality and morbidity. More to come on that conversation in the future. And I want you all to know that I'm validating that it is a tremendous conversation in our state. But I need to pull out the data that I know for sure impacts this right now, and a call to action on all fronts should be had. Listen to what's happening and ask yourself how you can be part of the change for the better. Specifically from our colleagues at CRIBS, that's the Center for Research for Infant Birth and Survival, put out a statement June 8th, 2022 regarding infant mortality in our state. Kansas 2020 annual summary full report is available at the link provided there. You all, this is the same link put through KBHE that gives lots and lots of rich data about our state's health, specific around maternal and infant health. And they noted for you specifically that infant mortality data can be found on page 18, tables beginning on 126. Look there specifically for information that they talk to or that speaks to the next paragraph. Again, from CRIBS, quote, unfortunately, 2020 did see an increase of 18.5% in infant deaths over year 2019. This is upsetting enough, but the racial disparities are absolutely devastating. Underlined, I put it in red. Next sentence, the Black non-Hispanic infant mortality increased by almost 60%. Exclamation point, end quote. I want you to sit on that. I want that to be uncomfortable. And then I want you to hear what work Dr. Smith and our state champions are doing to combat this conversation and many others that are absolutely devastating. That is exactly the right words to use. If we talk about what's being done to help, then I need to counter negativity and hard with what do we do to fix the problem. And folks like A1 at the national level are providing more and more resources so that we can help women and families at the bedside and beyond. A1 just launched a phenomenal resource called the Perinatal Bereavement Resource page. I listed there. Again, that link will be in, we will send all these links and all these resources to you post Learning Forum today. But I'm impressed by this resource. I looked around and drilled down on it. And I think that your facilities and certainly your staff yourself would benefit from the use of that resource for sure. Next, I saw many of you that were on site with us for Trimester site champions mention when we talked about the ACOG maternal hypertension bundle that you were using it, but you were also using or simultaneously using the CMQCC. And embarrassingly, I didn't know what that meant. And so I reached out to a couple of you and you were so kind to say, it's okay, Tara, this is what it is and this is how we use it. But CMQCC is our equivalent in Kansas in California. The California Maternal Quality Care Collaborative put out a phenomenal toolkit surrounding several high key features that Kansas is also working on. And so without drilling down too far today, I'm providing this resource to you all as a really good, exhaustive toolkit. The one I'm bringing to your attention is specific around hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. Uses ACOG's algorithms for maternal hypertensive care within that toolkit and is phenomenal to embed in your facility. So again, there's the link to the toolkit. You'll see on the screen on the left-hand screenshot that there's many toolkits that would be of use to you all. And I would encourage you all, if you need some ideas on protocols, want to know how to do the next step to embed maternal hypertensive protocols and education in your facility, we want to be your first step, but I want you to drill down further. And the CMQCC resource was really, really good when I took a look at it. Within Kansas, again, how do we help? How do we get more resources to patients? And when we talk about the village and we talk about all the people that are involved and should be involved, it can't just be the bedside providers. We know that. We also know that home visiting makes a difference, a tremendous difference. And our colleagues at KDHE have worked hard to come up with kansashomevisiting.org. That's, again, another link there that you see. It's an interactive map of where you and patients can find home visiting resources within each county. And so I pulled out Finney County, and you'll see once you click on that county, the bottom right-hand screenshot provides contact information and what's available per county for home visiting resources. Really impressive map. I know it continuously is being updated and reviewed. So look at your county, see where your home visitors are, connect with them. We're going to really push for that in this next year for our 4 trimester sites, but see what you've already got going there. And there's a great resource to have. Finally, on my radar, before we start to turn it over to our expert speakers today, is the conversation of our general meeting. One more thing I just needed to say to you, way to go. Way to go to all of you that were virtual with us and on site, for a total of 98 attendees. Wonderful numbers. We know that over 70 hospitals and agencies were represented that day, which speaks to the breadth of folks, the dynamic involvement of folks at the statewide level to make a difference. And we know that we had 3 expert speaker groups who, I don't know about you all, but I got something different from each one, including Dr. Smith, who clearly we asked to get back today. But wow, that general meeting, I think hit home from the patient perspective to the provider perspective to the state perspective. And I had a great time learning myself. As a second part of that day, most of you know that we asked for the 4 trimester champions to stay on site with us and to do some real important work together. And here is a great example of some hands-on work that they did at the retreat side of that day. We had 24 champions on site who worked on every piece of this project and walked away with their eyes wide open and a to-do list that was eons long and lots of good feedback about their next steps to make their facility and our state move forward. We also handed out t-shirts to all the champions. I'll show it to you here. So the front says "Not on my watch," and the back says "4th trimester initiative." If you're interested in a shirt, I have a couple extras left over, and you are certainly welcome to email me and see if I have your size. No cost. I just want them on the people that are doing the work. And I will tell you that the champions come back to your community with a great to-do list that takes all of us to be there. A special thanks to the KDHE and KCC leaders that worked hard along with our KFMC partners to make that day a success. It was a gorgeous, wonderful place, but it was also really wonderful just to network and be together. And it took everybody's work to do so. We also had the attendance virtually of our KPQC president, Dr. Busenhart, as well as Dr. Swan, the ACOG section chair, in person that day. And it does make a difference when they make themselves available on major events. All right, that was rapid fire for sure. Without further ado, welcome back, Dr. Charlotte Smith. Dr. Smith, as you all know, has many, many hats, including researcher, educator, change maker, Kansas Birth Equity Network leader, and I should do a better job about being more specific, but Dr. Smith, welcome. I would like for you to go ahead and share your screen. Let me stop doing that on my end, and welcome. We've asked Dr. Smith to give us an update today on Kansas Birth Equity Network training at all the sites. As many of you may know, this is a first in Kansas. We took a big apple and decided just go straight to it, and so happy to have you give us an update today, Dr. Smith.
Great. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity, and I appreciate it being able to share in this work. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Of course, with Zoom, I always think it's going to go perfect. It doesn't always go perfect, but if anything goes wrong, please let me know on your end. But I'm working with 3 different screens from home, so sometimes it does look a little bit complicated from my side. But I am grateful to be here and to update you guys on what is happening around this work and the fact that there are let me change this. I think you guys see do you see the notes or the presentation?
Dr. Smith, I see the presentation. Looks good.
Okay, great. I want to make sure. All right, so there are some, you guys are participating in this KBEN work, and so I'm excited about that and want to just give a little overview of what you've done and then also remind you how to access this curriculum as well as to get your insight on what you've learned so far. So this is going to be an exciting presentation and very open, so you are welcome to jump in at any time. If you have questions, you can stop me. I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns. And Aloma Obi is also on the line, and she is the person that makes this project move forward. So if you have questions for her, she's happy to join in as well. All right, I always like to remind everyone of what our vision is in the Kansas Birth Equity Network, and that it is truly Kansas focused, because I know oftentimes we get, who do we work with? This is Kansas work for Kansas families, particularly for Black families in that focus. So the mission is to use a community-centered approach to create solutions that improve Black maternal, paternal, and infant health in Kansas through training, research, healthcare, and advocacy. And we also have a vision. We have 2 visions. One is the vision for KBEN, and the other is the vision for an annual event that we do every day. But overall, we just believe that every family deserves to celebrate the baby's first birthday. So the purpose of this training is really to provide an overview of Black maternal health and the need for birth equity. And in doing that, it really highlights the voices of Black moms, birthing persons, and fathers. So really looking at what are their lived experiences and how do we as a community, as those individuals that are doing this work, how are we going to make sure that this work moves forward to create equity for a particular group of individuals? And once we create equity for them, and then we create equity for everyone, then we get to equality, right? And so that is very important. We want to gain an understanding of the various factors that contribute to African American maternal and infant health, and the mechanisms that aid in obtaining equity. So how do we obtain equity? What are those different factors that go into play, and what is the work that we do? And then just understanding what these women are doing, their stories, the public health experts that are working in this area, community advocates, and what the current health data shares. So as Tara shared in the beginning, we're going to see a major change in our 2020 data. We're not just going to see an increase in African American infant mortality, we're going to see an increase in African American maternal mortality. So what are we going to begin to do to address those issues? So you have done something very important. You have started this curriculum to really increase your awareness of these concerns, to really increase your knowledge of what Black women and fathers are experiencing in our state. And because of that, you begin to educate yourself in a way that will help move your work forward and will help you understand all of the communities that you serve. And in doing that, you have completed some modules, I hope, or started some modules. And so I want to just give an overview of what this curriculum is. First, you're going to have an introduction, which is really just telling you how to use the curriculum, why it's important, why you're here, telling you to think differently. As you go through this curriculum, open your mind, think about equity in a different way. The need for birth equity. Community engagement is very important. This is one of the pillars of what the Kansas Birth Equity Network is focused on, is how do we truly engage the community? The uncomfortable truth of bias. I know we talk about bias a lot, but we often don't talk about the uncomfortable truth, that often it's not bias. It is a form of racism, whether that be systematic, structural, or personally mediated. But we have to realize that there are some things going on here that we really need to know the truth about our biases. And then the Black postpartum experience, which includes doulas, mental health, of course, breastfeeding, as well as other experiences in the postpartum setting. And then respectful maternal care. How do we move this forward in a way that we provide respectful maternal care, that it doesn't matter the individual's race, income that we're providing this to, but it's all respectful maternal care. So I want to go over a little bit, just a reminder of how you're accessing the curriculum. And so if you are accessing a curriculum in a certain way, then just accessing that curriculum in a way that really allows you to understand what's happening and to go through that curriculum in a way that you can really access these things and learn these things and be exposed to them. All right, so when you're accessing the curriculum, remember that you received an email with a temporary password and link. And also you will need to create a new password when you first log into this. And then you want to be able to access that link. So here's the link here. And if you have not accessed the curriculum, this is a great time to go ahead and click on this link and make sure that you have access to it, because we're here to help you to make sure you have access to it. So this is how you got access. Each one of you received an email with a temporary password, and you will create that new password by accessing this link. Once you access that curriculum, you're going to see this background. This is Blackboard. And so it will let you know what you have access to in that. And you're going to see a video by Aloma that tells you how to use this curriculum, how to log in, how to access the modules, how to complete the surveys, and then what you're learning throughout the curriculum. When you log in, you will see this screen. You will click on the courses on the left column. Once you click on that course, then you will click on the Kansas Birth Equity Network curriculum, and you will access the curriculum, and then you will see the modules. So those modules that we discussed earlier will be displayed at that time. When you click on the modules, you will see what the content is in there. You will see the videos, you will see slides, you will see a brief survey. This is a very interactive curriculum that's really developed for you to not just read things and learn them, but to see what's happening. So there's going to be videos, there's going to be case studies, and there are going to be things that you can read, but it's going to give you that overall experience of learning. So we're going to stop and we're going to have a little discussion about what you have learned so far, because I know everybody's excited about kind of talking about what they've learned. And I know that there are some KBEN members on this call that may want to talk about what they've learned. So we're going to go through that and talk a little bit about what you've learned so far. So before we do that, I want to attempt to share this Amplifying Black Voices quickly. So you have to let me know if this works. I'm going to make the sound the same as the sound of my system. And so I think that will work, but you have to tell me.
Students, I'm a wife, I'm a mother.
Can you hear that?
I'm a friend. You gotta add that in. Yeah, I don't know what else you want me to elaborate. So as far as what city and state are you currently in? I am currently residing in Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, so are all of your birthing experiences in Kansas City? No, one of them was in Kansas City, Kansas, at the University of Kansas. Okay, perfect. So at this point, how many children do you have? And just kind of tell me about your family dynamic. Okay, I currently, I have 3 children, 3 boys, 21, 8 years old, and a 4-year-old. And how many pregnancies have you had? I had a total of 5 pregnancies. I had one where I had a pregnancy at 28 weeks. I delivered at 28 weeks and she lived for 1 day. And then I just had a miscarriage, I think about a couple of years ago in 2019, February 2019. So do you mind talking about your last 2? So were those the last 2 birthing experiences that you had? No, so the loss of my daughter was in 2001. It was right after the birth of my first son. I was a teenage mom then. And she lived for 1 day. They said she had like a heart condition, and so she just didn't make it. My last pregnancy definitely was my miscarriage, which is in 2019. And that experience was probably the most traumatic because that experience actually caused me to have infertility permanently. So during that miscarriage, it was a tubal pregnancy which erupted, and then I ended up losing my tubes during that because I guess after they, tried to remove whatever. Yeah, I mean, it was traumatic from walking in there, dealing with the clinic, the providers. That was definitely a struggle. It was a miscommunication, misconnection there. So I still experience some of those like triggers, right? So
I wanted to share this voice with you because I wanted to highlight the fact that when we're dealing with mothers and when we're dealing with these disparities, we don't truly know what the experiences of those mothers are. And this mother's experience is not something that's just only happened to her. We hear these stories over and over where there are traumatic experiences in the birthing experience. And we heard her say that she had challenges when she walked through the door of the clinic. And that is something that as a Kansan, as those in this work, that we're really trying to address. So I think it's important that when we're sharing these voices, that we share them with you all, because you guys are working to be a part of the solution. But in order for us to be a part of the solution, we also have to know what the problems are, right? And so when someone walks through the clinic and that's an issue, then that means that there's some miscommunication that is not welcoming, or that this person experienced some traumatic experiences prior to this that were never addressed. And you can see that even in her explanation of what happened, she doesn't have all of the details. So it is up to us, it is our responsibility to make sure that these traumatic experiences don't continue, that they end at some point. And that's why we're all here, because we're all in agreement that this is not the way that care is provided in our state, and that women, especially Black women in our state, will begin to experience great birthing experiences, right? And we will create equity. And so I like to stop there and always share with you what is being said, because I come here and I talk about these stories, but until you hear them from the mothers, we really don't know what is happening in our state as it relates to Black women and their birthing experiences. So I'm going to stop right there as we begin to talk about them and just see if someone wants to share what they've learned before I ask you some questions about it and we do some polls. But I just want to give the opportunity to weigh in, or what might be, you just heard this voice. So what might be your concerns in just listening to this voice, or what you might do as an organization? And I will call names. So let's just jump in and have an open discussion, and then we can move through the polls. Is that okay, Tara?
Great idea, Dr. Smith, sorry.
So Tara, what might be I know you've heard some of these voices before, but when you hear that, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it hits me kind of like our Mama's Voices moment happened. And furthermore, the video that was shared during the Mama's Voices presentation, you begin to think, how could that possibly happen? Right? And as a provider, I would tell you, you begin to look back at 19 years of care and think, I know I've done this. I know I've messed this up at some point. What can I do next? That's my immediate response, Dr. Smith. And the next part of me thinks, the data is so clear that this is this bad. And I'm so thankful that we're using the patient to speak the voice versus just us coming up with a checklist.
Great approach. I will tell you that even as a person who works in this space, and this is really a passion of mine, I didn't have a bad birthing experience, but when I hear these voices, it really is hard. It really is hard to take in those concerns, to hear those stories. And what I often think is, I want to be a part of the solution. Often I'm not really there. I'm not satisfied of whether or not I'm doing enough. So even as a Black woman, I struggle with whatever I do, I want it to be a part of the solution. And oftentimes I don't know if what I'm doing is actually a part of the solution. And so that's why I gather together with my community partners and with others so that I can truly be a part of the solution. So with no one else saying anything, we're going to move.
Students, I'm a wife, I'm a
Oh,
mother.
sorry.
Um,
We're going to move forward with our questions, and we're going to really look at what you have learned so far. And so you can see, I'm going to go through the questions, and then I'm going to share another screen where you can go in and vote, and we can see your results. So you're going to answer a few questions, and it's in the chat of the poll, but I will place it again. And I will share my screen where you can just immediately do that from your cell phone. We want to ask you, what does birth equity mean to you at this point, and what might be your intentions to create birth equity in Kansas? And this is data that Tara will have. So as you move forward in this work, I'm sure she will come back in a year and remind you of those goals that you set in creating birth equity. And then as well as what social determinants of health contribute to these disparities in maternal health, and how might you engage communities to improve maternal health disparities. And so I'm going to stop sharing so that I can share those screens that will actually provide you with this information. I think I got too many screens here. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to share the polls with you so you can then log in and talk about them. I think you can see it. Can you see that? Aloma's actually sharing her screen. But if you can see that, then go in and text OOBI to 22333 and answer this question. And then your responses will pop up. And that is just, what does birth equity mean to you? And this could be a short answer. It can be just birth equity, but whatever you can do that. Thank you, Aloma, for jumping in. Don't you just love that this creates a word chart? Just a word map of what everybody is saying. Thank you, Jenny. Yes, this is a creative way to give feedback. All right. Well, thank you. So we can see what birth equity means to most people. And for KBEN, our definition of birth equity is shifting the blame from Black women for poor health outcomes to system level accountability, really looking at those system policies and procedures that are creating these disparities, because oftentimes there are barriers within our system. And so we believe in shifting that blame. And once we shift that blame, then we can really address those things that we have control of addressing to create equity in our community. All right, next poll question. What might be your intentions to create equity in Kansas? And this one is very important because we do want to know, as a part of this work, as a part of the solution, now all of you are a part of the solution, what might be your intentions to create birth equity in Kansas? Love it. I love it. So of course, whenever we talk about birth equity in Kansas, we share in this vision of creating birth equity, and we see that there is a shared vision because we all share in what might be our intentions. You can see that some of these larger words were used by more, that is resources, partnerships, improved care, advocacy, education, and community. And this means that not only is KBEN working to create this birth equity, that we are working as a state, and we do have a shared vision. Whether we recognize it or not, we all have a shared vision in making this happen. All right, these are great. Next question, please. Okay, what social determinants of health contribute to disparities in maternal health? What social determinants do you feel contribute to disparities in maternal health? I love to see these word maps come together. So if you see me looking, I'm just admiring that. And so it seems as though there is also a shared role that we see these social determinants happening. And so we share this, and we're saying that these are some of the social determinants of health that we see contributing to those disparities: injustice, education, access, income, inequality. And so we see these things, but there are also other things that may be impacting our community: housing, transportation, childcare, insurance. Our state has made a major move in making sure that we cover women 1 year postpartum, right? Our governor and our legislators worked hard to make sure that that happened. And that is going to increase access to 1 year after birth, which also accounts for our maternal deaths. And so we see that these are some of the social determinants of health that have to be addressed in order for us to reduce these disparities. So I ask you today, what are you doing particularly to address these social determinants of health? Because now that we know what they are, we know that we have a shared vision for birth equity. What are we doing particularly in our day-to-day lives, in our family, in our communities? What are we doing to address these social determinants of health? Next question, please. All right, so now that I've asked this major question about realizing what social determinants of health factors are that contribute to these disparities and what you're doing, I want to know, how might you engage community members to improve maternal health disparities? What could be some of those innovative ways? I know that in Kansas, we have done a lot to engage community members, but what is that innovative way? What is that new way? So I always think about, when I'm doing this work, what to start doing, stop doing, or continue doing, right? There's some things that we've done that haven't worked, and so we should stop doing those. There's some things that we've done that have worked, we should continue doing those. But what are we going to start doing? And doing something different means that we get a different result. And since we've been trying to address these disparities for so long, it's now time for us to do something different. So what might be that different thing that you would do to engage community members to improve maternal health disparities, or to reduce those disparities? Home visits. And I know that there's a lot of work around home visits. I know Mariah Kranz, Dr. Kranz, is on here, and she is doing a lot of work around maternal and child health home visitors, which is a very innovative approach. We have doulas and community health workers home visiting access, increased Medicaid reimbursement for midwives, action planning, networking, some really great responses. Engage accountable stakeholders. Accountable stakeholders, that's really interesting. I wonder how we make stakeholders accountable. That's a very innovative approach. Grassroots work. Go to them and listen. It's true. So it seems as though there are more innovative approaches to be done to really address these disparities. cultural humility. That is a really great way. Well, thank you guys so much for responding to those questions. Again, Tara will have this data, and so you'll have the opportunity to review it at another time. I'm going to just share those who have completed the curriculum. I'm so excited that there have been individuals who have completed this curriculum, so want to just share that. And so I want to share that these individuals have completed the curriculum. We have Kara Smith have completed this curriculum. So yay to Kara. We also have Katie. I do not want to mispronounce your name, Katie. So I'm just going to say Kufa. And I hope that's right. And then we have Kayla Schroeder, who have completed the curriculum. And in progress, we have Jessica Geyer and Taylor Birchie, I'm guessing, Birchchai. And so we are so excited that you have begun the curriculum and you are on your way to completing it. We're so excited that 3 individuals have completed the curriculum, and we're here to answer any questions for those who have not completed it, and also to hear what those who have completed it thinks of the curriculum. So thank you so much, and we're so excited about that. I want to give times for questions and comments. So if there's any questions or comments about what we discussed today, please, please, please weigh in and let me know your thoughts. Any questions? All right, well, I will turn it back over to Tara. Tara, thank you so much for this opportunity. If there are any questions, please let me know. I think there is one in the chat.
They're asking specific questions, Dr. Smith, and I will connect them to you for sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, without further ado, we're gonna keep rocking through our morning. I would like to then share my screen because that is what I'm supposed to do. Hey, look, there it is. Kara, welcome back. You did a teaser, I think it was 2 months ago, for us to say, hey guys, don't forget about breastfeeding in Kansas. And sure enough, we know that it directly impacts and is impacted by maternal and infant health. Kara, without further ado, welcome. Can you give us an update on breastfeeding and the work that your group is doing in Kansas?
Yes, I sure can. Thank you, Tara. So again, my name's Kara Gerhart. I am the program coordinator for High Five for Mom and Baby here in Kansas. We're going to go ahead and move us to the next slide, please. For those of you who weren't present at the last meeting, I want to do a quick recap of High Five. High Five was created in 2012. We are supported and fully funded by the United Methodist Health Ministry Fund. And we were created with the goal of increasing the initiation, duration, and exclusivity of breastfeeding here in Kansas. We are doing this by promoting the 10 practices for successful breastfeeding throughout hospitals in the state of Kansas. These align with the World Health Organization and Baby Friendly USA's 10 steps to successful breastfeeding, excuse me. Next slide, please. High Five recognizes hospitals across Kansas who are practicing these steps at 80% proficiency and above. Those hospitals who are completing 5 or more practices are High Five recognized, and those facilities who are completing all 10 practices at 80% proficiency are High Five Premier recognized. Currently, we have 22 Premier hospitals and 19 High Five for Mom and Baby hospitals. So I think we've added 1 more hospital since our meeting in April, and we are continuing to provide education and meet with facilities to hopefully increase those numbers and put a High Five recognized hospital in every community across Kansas. Next slide, please. So how are we doing in Kansas? These numbers here are provided by the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition. They've generously shared their data with us from their State of Breastfeeding in Kansas report. And you can find the full report at their website, ksbreastfeeding.org. So let's have a look at our breastfeeding rates from 2010 to 2018. You can see that rates have been trending upwards. We are doing great with that. Our initiation, just over 70% when we started tracking here, to over or almost 90% in 2018. And rates of exclusive breastfeeding at 6 months have more than doubled to greater than 30%. So great job, Kansas. Next slide, please. Looking further at exclusive breastfeeding at 6 months, you can see that Kansas ranks 9th in the nation. So really doing a great job with assisting families with initiating breastfeeding and then encouraging them to continue that through 6 months when they're introducing solid foods. Next slide, please. Taking it one step further, looking at the percent of infants who are continuing to breastfeed at 12 months, Kansas ranking at 15th in the nation, so still doing pretty great there. I do want to point out again that this data is from 2018, and I know we've added a lot of baby-friendly hospitals over the last few years, so it'll be really exciting to see the updated report when those numbers come out. Next slide, please. Looking at Kansas compared to national averages, you can see that Kansas here in red compared to our national averages in blue, and Kansas is exceeding the national average in all measures. So your hard work is really paying off, and we want to just give a shout out to all of you who are supporting breastfeeding families across Kansas, and look at all the good work that you're doing. On the right side of the slide there, you can see our Healthy People 2030 goals do encourage us to stretch just a little bit further, and we are trying to get those numbers even higher. So what steps are we going to take so that we can reach those goals? Next slide, please. High five for mom and babies committed to helping birthing facilities as they identify areas for improvement and breastfeeding support. A few ways that we are looking at doing this: assisting with collaboration between facilities and programs through webinars and forums, just like this one. Education and breastfeeding training using the Kansas Train modules, in-person education and classes, as well as financial support for lactation training and certification. So we touched on this briefly before, but if you have a facility who has not previously obtained a scholarship from High Five for Mom and Baby, we do provide financial support for lactation education for someone in your facility to pursue an IBCLC or a CLC training. And so all you have to do is reach out for that, and we can provide the reimbursement so that you do have a trained lactation professional within your facility to assist your breastfeeding families. And then policy development. Just last week, we rolled out a new policy checklist, and we'll take a closer look at that on an upcoming slide. But that does just give you a quick and easy way to go through your policy and make sure that it supports all 10 practices for successful breastfeeding, and make sure that there aren't any gaps there where maybe something's being overlooked. Collaboration with programs that provide support and education for our birthing families, continuing to work with other coalitions and programs who maybe aren't breastfeeding specific, but just kind of look at our families and our communities' health in general, and make sure that breastfeeding is being included in those policies as well. Next slide, please. So here is a closer look at that policy that I just mentioned. So we tried to make this very straightforward, not too overwhelming, not too many items to check off, and you can really develop a comprehensive policy without necessarily checking every box on the list, but gives you some ideas maybe for where there might be room for improvement or opportunities to expand an existing policy to include more of those steps, and make sure that we are really supporting breastfeeding at every available opportunity there in your facility. Might be a little bit difficult to read on your screen, so please do take a closer look at the policy at our website at highfivekansas.org, and that will be found under the resources tab. Next slide, please. So maximizing our support and education. On the left side of your screen here, I've included one of our 10-step Tuesday flyers or posters that we send out on a weekly basis. So what are some ways that we can look at our community and look at the support that we're providing from prenatal education all the way through postpartum, and make sure that that plan is really comprehensive for our families? What does this look like? So getting the conversation started early, making sure that we are including our prenatal clinics and breastfeeding plans. So the 10-Step Tuesday posters can be sent out, of course, to hospitals, and that's where they're currently primarily going. But are there prenatal clinics in your community that could maybe use some weekly encouragement? The 10 steps do provide just talking points, answers to frequently asked questions about breastfeeding, medications, tips for traveling, things over the summer. So we try to keep those relevant and kind of what's going on in the community. So maybe considering including some of the prenatal clinics in your community with those resources that you're receiving in the hospital. Nursing, lactation, all caregivers supporting breastfeeding mother's choice. So hospital caregivers, that goes beyond just the nursing staff and the lactation staff, but also your physicians teams, your nursing techs or CNAs, pharmacy. What other caregivers are in the hospital that really could use the education and information to help support our breastfeeding mothers? Because we know that they are getting a lot of interaction with people throughout their hospital stays, and that support really coming from all directions can boost mom's confidence in herself and her ability to provide that breast milk for her baby. And then the postpartum plan. Last but not least, of course, the postpartum plan really does every breastfeeding parent, when they're discharged from the hospital, know where to go if they have breastfeeding questions? Is there communication between the hospital and community breastfeeding resources? Is everybody on the same page? One of the things that we are taking into consideration, of course, is not just the fact that moms may need breastfeeding support, but they might need support in other areas. And breastfeeding may be the first point of contact after they go home from the hospital. Next slide, please. So if mom has other questions that arise, if they don't have a postpartum visit until that 6-week checkup, they might seek lactation support beforehand. And do our lactation care providers know of the warning signs to look for? And is there that open line of communication, not just one way with a referral form from the hospital to the breastfeeding support group, but is that a two-way communication so that moms can get the support that they need from their caregivers, maybe if they're seeing a lactation professional before their scheduled postpartum visit. So we want to make sure that our communication is open and that we're able to collaborate with all of the resources that moms need access to so that they can really get that comprehensive care that they need. Next slide, please. I want to give a quick shout out. You already know that breastfeeding and the 4th trimester initiative go hand in hand. Of all of the sites currently participating in 4th trimester initiative, 24 are currently High Five recognized, 14 are Premier, and then these facilities that you see listed in pink are also Baby Friendly USA. So that is really just incredible, and I want to give a huge shout out to all of you who are working hard to provide this level of care for the moms in your community. Only 5 currently enrolled 4th trimester initiative sites are not High Five recognized. So if you don't see your facility's name on this list, I would love to connect with you. Feel free to send me a chat message, give me a call or an email, and let's talk about how we can get your facility recognized. I really believe that most facilities across the state are probably already completing a minimum of 5 of the 10 steps, and it's just a matter of getting that application filled out and making sure that we can continue to support you in the important work that you're doing. Next slide, please. So what's next? You can find out more and apply for High Five for Mom and Baby recognition on our website, highfivekansas.org. If you'd like to be added to the distribution list or you have questions about the application process, please do email me directly at coordinator@highfivekansas.org. You can find free breastfeeding education with CEUs at kansastrain.org. And you can also access that if it's easier for you to have a one-stop shop at the High Five Kansas website. Again, under resources, education resources include a direct link to our Kansas Train site. You just search for Kansas breastfeeding education and there are 15 modules and they all do have CEUs. Lastly, again, you can find the hospital breastfeeding policy checklist and other helpful tools and links on the High Five Mom and Baby resource page. And that is it. Sped right through and left a few minutes for questions. So feel free to drop them in the chat or speak out if you have questions. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks, guys.
Kara, thank you. You did a great job presenting as well. And I knew we'd have two speakers that would take us all the way up to the 1 o'clock hour. And you both did really well in a very tight space. I think each of you could probably provide 2 hours of training and education and teamwork. So thanks for shrinking that down just for the 1 hour session we had today. I think, what's helpful that both Dr. Smith and Kara shared today was where our 4th trimester sites are, where they want to go next, and the fact that we have 2 experts in the field offering their full resource list to you. It, however, extends beyond that. And I think there are many on this call and many in the state who want to be involved, but either aren't at a 4th trimester site, or want to become a 4th trimester site, or just want to do independent work. And I would always remind you that this is an open book. We don't want to just exclusively talk and educate 4th trimester sites, but we had to hone in on that piece to get the project and get the move forward happening. But everyone's invited in. These 2 experts are easily accessible and want to do work beyond just 4th trimester sites, but hear them directly working with them, because remember, at this point, work with 4th trimester sites is impacting over 80% of birth in Kansas. That is tremendous. And I'm thankful to these 2 women who are doing great work, both at the ground level and on the high level action. That said, I'm going to spend just a few minutes here updating all of us at the state level on some important data that I think, again, just hones in on where we're all going next. Today, we talked about birth equity and the important work of self-reflection, education, and action plan, as well as breastfeeding, agency self-reflection and action plan, and where Kansas is. I will tell you, Kara, that some of that data surprised me with how well Kansas is doing. I think day to day, it feels like some days are good breastfeeding days and some days aren't in our facility. And so it's helpful to know that we're heading the right direction. So data to me is important versus just anecdotal evidence. What you all see in front of you right now, do you see it in front of you? Let me ask you that question, right? Everybody sees my screen? Okay. So some of the data that I pulled just from our on-site feedback is in front of you. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of those moments and share this out once we get done. We've talked about the importance of emergency departments in our work. I would say that's true for birth equity, no more true than emergency departments, as well as breastfeeding support and resources in the EDs. I wanted you to be proud that over half of our 4th trimester sites are engaging their emergency departments in post-birth training. And I'm hearing lots of conversation of how EDs are interested in hearing about how to care for our postpartum patients more effectively, more compassionately, and more dynamically. And so I would offer up that should be everyone's move forward, is to connect with that important piece of your facility. Why? We know from the Kansas data that morbidity and mortality, unfortunately, sometimes either passes through there unknown or stops there and shouldn't. Be proud of the next piece. 21 sites of 29 have completely finished post-birth training on the initial level and then are beginning to onboard all new staff. 45% of sites are now routinely screening for perinatal mood disorder. 48% of sites are now routinely making postpartum visits. That makes this midwife really happy. Of course, I want that to be 100, but we're getting there. We're swinging that move. And that just like Dr. Smith mentioned, Kansas Birth Equity has now begun at all 29 sites, and I'm extremely happy to hear that 3 of you have already completed that training. They didn't jump on, but I know that several of them have given me feedback that it's actually really, really great training that they sped through because they wanted more and more once they got going. So that's a little carrot to dangle for the rest of you. And if we talk about specific post-birth numbers, we talk about why post-birth is educating the entire state on same language centered around that algorithm of post-birth. What of those letters means a red flag, what means a yellow flag, and what's a green flag? Hugely important that everybody begin to recognize across the state. We have to date trained 828 folks across Kansas. And remember that some of those are then training others, so that data is way underreported, but I'm thrilled that we're creeping up more and more folks that are on the post-birth education train. And 20 of 29 sites that we talked about are completely done. I have lots of free registrations for post-birth still available. If you're a site that needs more or hasn't begun training, reach out to me and I'll get you through real fast. Again, you will want this training for your staff. You may, a caveat, you may have had a message from A1 that your previously registered account was expiring. It is a nuance of the system. You can re-engage and re-register. We've got plenty. In fact, if you log in again, that login is now good through December of 23. So it gives you plenty of time for new staff and for training current staff. I think the only thing I have left to tell you about is the general meeting, save the date, which is this coming November 15th, 2022. We're going to meet on site with details coming soon, but please save that date. Can't wait to see you all. Can't wait to engage and collaborate together. And with that, I'll leave you with the next 4 Learning Forum dates and the registration link, which is there, also available on our website. July looks to be a learning forum, but I will tell you that I will keep you posted on our plans. We sometimes take a summer break during July, so I want to keep that option open, but certainly we'll let you all know as soon as possible. Go ahead and register and we'll get that information out. But the next 3 are locked in with great, solid presenters expected. With that, I'll give you 1 minute back of your noon hour, and thank you so much for attending. We'll see you soon. Tammy, I think we can stop the recording and go ahead and work on publishing it. You should have the final slides from me. And then that resource list, I know Tiffany has that planned. I just want to make sure you know that we're good to go.
Sounds good. I will let her know. And Tara, I have leftover things from